There are Shinto Yamabushi and Buddhist Yamabushi. We are the only Shinto Yamabushi in Japan. Shugendou is not officially a religion. It's based on Shinto, Buddhism, Taoism, and native Japanese animism. You could argue that Shinto isn't a religion. Government tried to enact state Shintoism, and they tried to get rid of any religion that was not Shinto.
Welcome to Unpacking Japan. I'm Toby, and today I'm sitting here with Tim. Thank you for coming.
Oh, thanks for having me.
You came all the way from northern Japan, Yamagata Prefecture,
right. Yeah.
where you are a Yamabushi.
That's right.
So Yamabushi is something that we're going to get into much more throughout our conversation, but briefly described, you call it a mountain ascetic.
That's right. Yeah, so Yamabushi are, I don't know, it's really hard to describe what we are because we aren't exactly like monks or priests, although you probably could call us monks or priests, but the closest word that I've found in English is a mountain ascetic.
So before we dive into that and what you do as a Yamabushi and what it all means, let's go back a little bit and maybe you can tell us, how did you get to Japan in the first place?
Okay, so I'll try and keep it as short as possible. But when I was a little boy growing up in New Zealand, we had many Japanese students come and stay at our house, like a homestay. And at the same time, my brother was studying Japanese. My brother's 4 years older than me. And he lived in Tokyo for 1 year when I was like 12 or 13, so like a impressionable
So he was still
age.
like 16 or 17.
Yeah. So
that's
he did
cool.
a study abroad. And so that was probably the biggest influence on me. And then in New Zealand, like we can start studying Japanese from high school, which is about 13. And so I had already experience with Japanese people and culture, and my brother was living in Japan. So I naturally had an
pretty strong
interest.
influence, yeah.
Yeah. And so I started studying Japanese back, so that's more than 20 years ago now. But so I started studying Japanese and then fell in love with it. And then kept studying, and then, what was that? When I was 16 or 17, we did like a 2-week excursion to Japan. And at that moment, I knew that I wanted to live in Japan.
Yeah, it was kind of the first time you go there, you're like, I need to come back.
Yeah.
Where was it?
So the first place we came to was Osaka.
Nice,
and
good choice.
We stayed in Shin Osaka Youth Hostel. And so just before when I was coming on the Shinkansen, I was like, I've been here before.
Yeah.
And so Osaka, we did like 10 days in Osaka, and from there did day trips to Himeji, Hiroshima as well. Hiroshima, we stayed one night in Hiroshima, Kyoto, and then like 4 days in Tokyo.
So you got like a pretty good impression of Japan, and then you were like, okay, I need to come back.
Yeah, like I remember, so we left Narita Airport, and I remember looking down. I was like, yeah, I have to come back.
See you soon.
Yeah.
So when was it that you actually came to settle here?
So that was 2010. So before that, so I did a 6-month study abroad in Okayama Prefecture, and then I actually moved here in 2010 as a ALT, assistant language teacher on the JET program, and so that was when I first came to Yamagata. So they
also your JET program placed you in Yamagata.
placed me in Yamagata.
Was it your choice or
No.
no?
Well, kind of, because JET gives you, like, you can write places that you want to go to, and so I put like, I think first I put like Fukuoka because I'd never been there. It sounded fun, and then second was Akashi City in Hyogo, because like a good friend from my time during the study abroad that's where he lived, and third I put Anywhere, and so Anywhere was granted. So like
Anywhere was granted, and Yamagata, it was.
Yeah.
So what was your impression like? How's Yamagata for someone who's never been there?
Mountains.
Mountains, lots of
Green,
mountains.
Rice fields, rivers.
So more like a rural kind of area of Japan.
It's pretty rural. Like the region I live in, Shawnai, is an agricultural region, and it's just rice fields, and then you've got a 2,000 meter high mountain in the distance, and then surrounded by other mountains in the ocean. And actually, the city, Tsuruoka City, which is just south of where I live, was the first city in Japan to get recognition for its food culture from UNESCO.
Interesting.
So the first creative city of gastronomy, credited by UNESCO. That was in 2016. So yeah, and part of the reason for that is because of the unique geography, like the mountains that feed. This is kind of Yamabushi stuff as well, but the mountains so Mount Gasan is it gets like I don't know, but it gets like at least 10 meters of snow.
Okay, and that's a lot of snow.
It's a lot of snow, and it's it actually has Mount Gasan has the latest ski season in Japan. The ski season begins in April. Begins in April.
That's when usually the ski season stops, right?
That's right. So you can ski or snowboard and surf on the same day in Yamagata.
Wow.
If you come in like, I don't know, June.
April, May, or in June?
Yeah, even? Maybe May like it's probably a little bit cold in the ocean, but so Gasan gets a lot of snow, and that snow melts and it feeds the rice fields of Shawnai, and then it also feeds the oceans. And because of the unique makeup of the it's like the water from Mount Gasan, like it feeds like a whole
like a basin kind of.
Yeah, like, and then it means that we get good agricultural products like rice, and then like normal I don't know. Tsuruoka City is famous for heirloom vegetables, which are vegetables that the seeds have been passed down through the same family, and there are like more than 70 varieties of heirloom vegetables. And then like the ocean has its own ecosystem, which provides like really good fish as well. And so we've got like, and then the mountains as well. The mountains do provide food, and so we've got like this
perfect ecosystem.
And it all stems from the mountains.
So the way you've just described kind of the area and the city and the food, it sounds like when you arrive there, you're like, that's the place for me.
Yeah, that's just one part of it.
That's just one part of it. So you've been there for now 13, nearly 14 years.
Right. Yeah.
Are you still working as a JET IELT teacher? No.
So I did JET for 4 years. Then I quit JET, and then I went back to New Zealand for a little bit, and I wanted to study translation, but my application fell through, and so I came back to Japan, and then I got married, and so that covers my visa, and I was just working as a freelance translator, and then I also got a job at a university, and I'm still working at the university as a lecturer, just teaching English.
Okay.
Yeah.
So throughout all of this, how did you get into, like, how did you discover or hear about Yamabushi?
So the first time I heard about Yamabushi was in 2010, the first week that I arrived in Shawnai, in Yamagata. A friend of mine took me to Mount Haguro, which is like the base of the Dewa Sanzan of the three mountains of Dewa, Mount Haguro, Mount Gasan, and Mount Yudono. And so my friend took me to Mount Haguro, and he said that there are these people called Yamabushi, and that's the first time I heard about them. But then I heard nothing like, besides there were a few rituals that the Yamabushi do. One is really cool, and I highly recommend it. On New Year's Eve, they have a really cool festival it's a fire festival. I can talk about it later, but and so I'd like went and saw these rituals and stuff, but I had I didn't have any interest at actually becoming a Yamabushi until in 2016, my father passed away, and I went back to New Zealand, and then the week I came back to Japan, so friend of mine introduced me to my now Yamabushi partner. And at the time, my now Yamabushi partner, his name is Takeharu. So Tak, he was trying to set up a way for non-Japanese speakers, so English speakers, to also come and join the Yamabushi training. And that's when he invited me in 2016. And then I did official Yamabushi training to become a Yamabushi. There's a week-long training through Dewa Sanzan Jinja. And I did that in 2017, and that's when I became an official Yamabushi. So Tak was so I want to provide Yamabushi training to English speakers, and would you like to help me? And at the time, I was like, sure. I've lived in Yamagata now for 13 years, so it shows that I like the place.
Yeah.
And so, but I still, even to this day, I can't understand why it doesn't have as much of an international profile as other areas of Japan, because it's such a wonderful place. Part of that is language,
maybe harder to access for tourists that don't speak Japanese.
It is, yeah. And so that's probably the main point. But it's such a wonderful location, and it's a shame that not many people get to come and see it. And so I was wanting to do something to try and build up the profile. And that's when I met Tak, and Tak was like, yeah, you should be a Yamabushi. And I was like, why not?
So you hear about Yamabushi the first time on your first week in Yamagata, and you think, oh, there are these people, they kind of move around in the mountains, and they do some rituals and have some traditions. Sounds like straight off out of an anime movie or something like that.
Yeah, I suppose, yeah.
And then a few years later, you actually kind of get closer and get introduced to Yamabushi, and you realize, okay, they are tied to Dewa Sanzan Jinja, right?
That's right.
In some of them. So
that's right.
There are religious ties. And but you also said earlier when we started, they're not really monks. It's more like a mountain ascetic. So for someone who's still maybe perhaps trying to visualize or understand what a Yamabushi is, how could we describe that?
Yeah. So I mentioned that I work at a university. So it's also important to note that I'm a Dewa Sanzan Yamabushi, or Hagoro Yamabushi.
So you are associated with this temple, this school of Yamabushi.
Shrine, yeah. That's a whole other story between Shinbutsu Shugo, so the fusion of Shinto and Buddhism is a whole other story. So I'm a Dewa Sanzan Jinja Yamabushi, and on the Dewa Sanzan mountains there are Jinja, so shrine Yamabushi, and there are also Tera, so Buddhist Yamabushi. So there are Shinto Yamabushi and Buddhist Yamabushi. That's because of the Meiji Restoration. But
so that's 18th century kind of
1868. So and so we are the only Shinto Yamabushi in Japan. Okay, and the reason why we are Shinto Yamabushi is because there were Buddhist Yamabushi up until the Meiji Restoration. And at the Meiji Restoration, the government tried to enact state Shintoism, and they tried to get rid of any religion that was not Shinto.
That was 1871?
Yeah, it was 1871 or 1872. That's when they had the decree. The one against Shugendou was 1872. And so they tried to ban anything that was not Shinto. And at that time, the Dewa Sanzan mountains were Buddhist, but they said, no, we've been Shinto all along. And so because they said that, so they became a Shinto entity. And because they said that, they were able to survive as well, because Yamabushi lived on the mountains all over Japan. And for example, in Kumano and Omine, and also Hikosan in Kyushu. And so, but the mountains in Yamagata, because they switched to Shinto, they were able to retain the culture, albeit with a Shinto flair. And then in 1945, when freedom to practice religion was reinstated in Japan, the Buddhists, I don't know, maybe kind of like, I'm not sure what they were doing. Maybe they were practicing in hidden and in secret, and then they came back. And so now we've got the Shinto Yamabushi and the Buddhist Yamabushi.
So at the core, it's a religious institution.
It is, because it's a Shinto shrine. It depends. Like, you could argue that Shinto isn't a religion because it's a door, so it's a path or a way. And Shugendou, which is the belief that we Yamabushi practice. So Shugendou Shu is ascetic practice. Gen is from the word Genriki, which is supernatural powers, and Do is the path or the way. And so a Yamabushi is someone who practices Shugendou. That's how you explain it. And then Shugendou it's a door, and so it's not actually. So Shugendou is not officially a religion, but it's based on Shinto, Buddhism, Taoism, and native Japanese animism. And these four beliefs were combined into one practice in the 7th century, 8th century by a ascetic named Enno Gyoja. But so that's what we practice. So
a Yamabushi is someone that practices Shugendou.
Yeah.
And Shugendou is not necessarily religious. It's more kind of a way of life.
Yeah.
So to say.
Yes.
So how could we? What exactly does Shugendou imply? What is it that you practice?
So the Shu part of Shugendou, the ascetic practice, is so we, because we're a Shinto as well, we do it in the Shinto style. So we would go and pray to the kami, but so it gets really confusing. The week-long training that I did to become an official Yamabushi, that's through the Shinto entity, but we provide Yamabushi training not as a Shinto entity, but as a separate entity. And the training that we provide for English speakers is Shinbutsu Konko. So it's a combination of Shinto and Buddhism. Okay. And so what we practice is it's based on religion, but I don't regard myself as religious, even though I am a practicing Yamabushi. And so it's more like a spiritual empowerment. And so what we do is, so when we do the Shinto training, what we would do is we would go to they're called haisho in Japanese, so ogamu tokoro, so places that you pray at. We would visit these places on the mountain and we would pray to the kami, or we would do rituals. One famous one is the waterfall meditation. And so
waterfall meditation.
Yeah, so we would be under a waterfall.
So it's like this image of you stand under the waterfall with the water falling onto your head. Oh.
Yeah, and so that's one of the things that we do. And then there are other things, but I'm not actually allowed to. I've been sworn to secrecy, but what I've explained now is stuff that you can see from the outside. So, and then yes, we do these whole different rituals and stuff.
You have a lot of rituals and you have these kind of practices that you do on a regular basis.
Yeah.
What exactly, is there a goal, a purpose? For example, many years ago, I went to a retreat in Myanmar, cool. Vipassana retreat.
Cool. Yeah.
And so when I was talking to some people there, the purpose of the meditation for the monks, I think it was Theravada Buddhism, is for them to reach nirvana, right? So through breathing practice, they're supposed to focus until they reach the state of enlightenment. Do you have anything similar in Yamabushi? Do you have any goal that you're trying to aim for?
So this probably depends on who you ask. So because we're a Shinto, it's kind of because originally the Buddhists would have the same trying to reach enlightenment goal. Shinto, I'm not exactly sure. I remember my Yamabushi master. We have a master. His name's Master Hoshino. He's 76 years old. He's got a really cool beard, and He's 76, but he moves like a teenager. He's crazy on the mountains, and he says, so the reason to practice Shugendou is to practice Shugendou. So it's really like what's it called, like a
in itself
paradox. Yeah, but it's like it's kind of like why I do it as well. Like you do it to do it, but there are like side effects or side benefits, like more clarity, or some things that I've noticed myself doing is where in the past I would probably hesitate to, I don't know. One example I thought of recently was Audible, you know, the Amazon
platform to listen to audiobooks.
Yeah. So in the past I would probably take a long time to decide whether to subscribe or not. And now I'm just like, if I have some sort of inkling or some desire to subscribe to something like that, I'll just go for it instead of like thinking about it.
What changed?
Just like, because maybe this might be a thought thing. Having a desire or like an inkling to do something, and then actually acting on it before you have the time to think deeply about it, I feel is more like connected to what your true ambition is. And so I try to like, this is what my Yamabushi master Hoshino says, is like to act on your inkling before like your judgment clouds you, and then you don't act. Like Yamabushi is always about acting first, and then so like when we go into the mountains, the master Hoshino is like, so sense, put yourself in nature, sense, and then reflect on what you sense. And so in a sort of similar way, it's like in everyday life, like if you feel that you want to do something, you should just go ahead and do it, and then judge whether it is the right thing or not. Of course, there are limits to this, but I try and incorporate that into my daily life as well.
So in a way, like other types of practices come to mind, like Taoism or so on. You basically learn a set of principles that facilitate maybe decision making, the way you live your life, and you kind of remove some concerns you had by just applying those principles.
Yeah.
And you do all of this in the mountains.
Yeah.
You mentioned the mountains a lot in our conversation.
Yeah.
What role do they play actually in Yamabushi, Yama is mountains, mountain.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So Yamabushi, Yama is mountains, and Bushi is from Fuseru, which means to be on all fours. And this is because Yamabushi, to crawl. So this is because Yamabushi would live on the mountains, and that's where people found them, like crawling on the mountains. So they would call them Yamabushi. Another word for Yamabushi is a Shugenja, so practitioner of Shugendou. And so the mountains I think it doesn't necessarily have to be mountains, like it just nature in general. So it could be the oceans or other places. But for us, so the Dewasanzan mountains, and this is common in other places in Japan as well. So the mountains represent the womb, so the mother's womb. And so when we enter the mountains, what we're doing is kind of like separating our physical selves from our like mental selves, and we're taking our soul, like our physical self from our soul, and we're taking our soul on a journey in the mountains. And in the case of the Dewasanzan, so Mount Hagoro represents the world of the present, Mount Gasan the world of the past, and Mount Udon the world of the future. And we take our souls on the journey through the mountains, and it's like a journey through all time. And when we come out, our soul reattaches to our body and we are reborn. And so what that means in layman's terms is like you start like with a fresh mindset, like you have a fresh I don't know, like if you want to try and I don't know, reset, or like you've
so if you have a concern, you go into the mountain, you separate yourself mentally and physically in a way, and you just focus on being present in nature and enjoying the hike through the mountains. And when you come back, you reconnect and you kind of start fresh. Like you are ready to tackle whatever issue you had before with like a clear mind.
And sometimes like so recently I was talking to Master Hoshin, and he was saying that there was one example. I don't know whether I should say this or not, but I don't even know who it was, so it doesn't really matter. I'm not going to be giving away anything. So one person was wondering whether they should divorce or not, and Master Hoshin was like, "You already know the answer. Like if you're wondering that, it's probably a bad sign." And so if that person like went into the mountains, they would be able to, like, I don't know, find out whether they should do it or not. But Master Hoshin was saying like, you already know the answer. And so it's like a way to, I don't know, just think clearly, or try and like get back to your first principles, or like get back to like who you are as a person. And by regularly going into the mountains, doing Yamabushi training, or then it's a way to I don't know, like to gain a clear sense of direction, or
For someone that maybe just likes hiking and goes hiking regularly and has a similar experience but without being Yamabushi, would you say that the difference with being Yamabushi is kind of being more conscious about this kind of process of separation?
So the big point with Yamabushi is that we pray. We pray to the...
So throughout the hike, you stop at those prayer points and you kind of pray to the kami. And
And so that's what separates it from general hiking. Or that's like the biggest point. So the prayer is like, it's an extremely important part.
You said at the beginning that you underwent 1 week training with Tak.
Tak was there.
He kind of introduced you to the Yamabushi. Is this available to anyone? Do you need to meet any prerequisites? If I go there tomorrow, can I
so
become part of Yamabushi?
The week-long training is run through Dewa-sanzan Jinja. And I think if you really wanted to, you could apply, and if you were accepted, they would let you in. Normally, you would need an introduction, and an introduction is what we can give. So there's the week-long training through Dewa-sanzan Jinja, and then there are we call them Yamabushi Do project, Yamabushi Do programs. So we run, it's the same kind of training that you would do with the Dewa-sanzan Jinja, but in the Yamabushi Do trainings, we don't allow talking, and everything else is like the same as during the training. And if you did the Yamabushi Do trainings, like we can give you a introduction to the shrine. You probably could go directly to the shrine yourself, but you would need Japanese, and there's a whole process which we can help with. But it's better if you come and join us first.
And once you undergo this 1 week training, do you get a sort of certificate, or is it like a kind of unspoken, like now you're part of, you're one of us? And
the biggest thing you receive is a Yamabushi name. So if you do that week-long training, you get a Yamabushi name. So that's kind of like you're certified as an official Yamabushi. This is with Dewa-sanzan Jinja, so it'll be different in other parts of Japan.
On your website, you explained that one of the key rituals to pass to kind of become a Yamabushi is this
Autumn's Peak.
Peak.
That's the week-long training.
That's a week-long training.
Yeah. Aki no Mine is...
So Japanese. It is always at that time. You can't take it like whenever you want.
Yeah,
it's like once per year.
Always August 26th to September 1st. And it's been that way since the Meiji Restoration, so at least 150 years.
And now that you're Yamabushi, you say you're still working at the university, right?
That's right.
And so you have a family life too.
Yes.
So do you have any obligations once you become a Yamabushi? Or is it something you do with other Yamabushi, or is it a personal practice where you just go by yourself and you?
It's a combination.
It's a combination.
In terms of obligations, like you're not really obliged to do anything, but it's kind of like an unwritten rule that you should try and help people who, like Yamabushi in the past, they were like guidance counselors or even doctors, and they would help the people of the village to like see a better way through, and so it's not like a rule that you have to do this, but it's, I don't know, I guess it's encouraged to help people to see a different point of view using your experience on the mountains, for example.
So because you get this clarity from maybe spending time by yourself, spending time thinking in nature that others do not necessarily have time to do.
You can just provide a different perspective, and this perspective is through your training on the mountains. One thing I should probably mention is Hansei Hanzoku, so half sacred, half secular. So there are, as far as I'm aware, there aren't any like people whose occupation is Yamabushi, except for people who are retired.
So people don't really do this full time. They become they become a Yamabushi, but then they participate, kind of like a club in a way.
I suppose
simply.
So Hansei Hanzoku is like, this is also why I don't like the term monk or priest, because if you're a monk or a priest, it means that's what you do, that's your occupation. But when it comes to Yamabushi, we have Hansei Hanzoku, so we have normal everyday life like you do, but we just so happen to also be Yamabushi, and this is like, I don't know any other religion where this is the case. Like if you're a monk, you're a monk. If you're a priest, you're a priest. Like, but with Yamabushi, it's like to better serve the people that we want to serve. For example, what I just mentioned with like kind of like guidance counseling kind of stuff. It's better if you understand what life is like for that person, and so we try and like combine the two. What I see, the Yamabushi world and my normal life is like it's just an extension of my normal life, and so but because I have this experience in the mountains, and because I have like a normal everyday life, I'm able to better combine the two, or to provide advice or assistance when necessary, I guess.
So you are able to kind of keep this balance, and you don't necessarily have.
I think so. Yeah.
When I went to that monastery, the monks that become monks, as you said, it's their occupation, right? But they also have to swear. I don't remember the number, but it's in the hundreds, like 258 or something like that. Things that they will renounce.
Okay. Yeah.
The basic ones are: I will not steal anymore. I will not harm anyone. I will not eat this or that. And do you have to give up anything by becoming a Yamabushi?
No.
So you
normal
just
everyday life. I eat meat.
You just gain into something.
Except during the Yamabushi training period. During the training period, we're like strict rules. Like sometimes we don't eat, and like the food that we eat is like no meat or fish, and then like I mentioned before, no talking. During the week-long training, we are allowed to talk. That's a separate thing. But and then there's things like no personal grooming, so we can't shave. And then, of course, no cell phones or like communication tools like that. There's also no reading or writing as well. And the purpose of no reading and writing is to put you in the moment. It's like if you're reading something, it's something someone's written in the past.
Some external input.
And same with like if you're writing for future reference. So it means that you're not living in the now. So during the training period, we strictly like follow that sort of
which
rules,
is just the 1 week.
Yeah.
If someone is now going to Yamagata and just out for a hike,
Yeah.
Is there a way to recognize someone who's a Yamabushi and not a Yamabushi?
Yeah. So you'll probably notice a Yamabushi straight away. It depends. So like someone in training, you would notice straight away. They'll probably be wearing like a white hokan is what it's called.
So if someone goes on your website, the clothes they see you wearing, the white and the hat, all white outfit, this is for training.
Yes. Yeah. Then like I do personally go into the mountains like myself for the purposes of praying to the mountains, also for the purposes of YouTube and my blog. But and so I would go hiking, and then you'd probably see me with my conch as well. So that's one way you could probably recognize a Yamabushi. But normally, like if you're doing Yamabushi, if you're there to do Yamabushi training, you'll be wearing the full Shiroshozoku outfit.
But after you're through training, you don't necessarily need to wear this when you go.
No.
So then it's harder to recognize.
Yeah.
What was the most difficult for you personally when you kind of underwent this training and this experience? And now you've been part of the Yamabushi for a few years, so you've experienced quite a bit.
Yeah. So the hardest thing for me, besides not being able to see my family, is sitting on the floor.
A lot of sitting?
Yeah. So during that week-long training, so I'm not actually allowed to give any specific numbers, but we sit quite a lot.
And in Seiza?
So not necessarily.
Not necessarily. So Seiza, for those that don't know, is this traditional Japanese seating where you kind of, your knees are folded and it starts to hurt because the blood flow is kind of cut off.
Yeah. So I can sit in Seiza for probably maybe 10 or 15 minutes now, but in the past I couldn't. And during the week-long training, so they know that we're going to be sitting on the floor for a long time, and so they allow us to, they say, ichido hiraza, which is like you can sit cross-legged if you want. And so when you're doing the extensive prayer sessions, sometimes last more than an hour, it's cross-legged or seiza, so you're just switching between the two the whole time. And that, like, because I don't know, this might be same with other people from the West, but we don't sit on the floor much.
No, we don't, right? When we grow up, it's like quite different.
And one thing I've also realized is Japanese squat toilets. So anyone older than about my age use the squat toilet, so they're pretty good at sitting on the floor. But younger than that, Japanese people seem to struggle sitting on the floor, and I think it's partly because of the squat toilets. And so so we're sitting on the floor for a long time, and because I have like I'm working on it, okay, but I have really tight hips, and so my yoga teacher is really, really good. She explains like so you have to have like your back straight, but if you have really tight hips, it means your knees come right up and you start leaning forward, and it's really bad posture. And if you're sitting like that for I don't know, even more than 20 minutes or so, so the
prolonged sitting was really kind of the thing that was the most challenging.
Yeah, it was actually. And so I've started doing yoga, and I also take painkillers as well. Like you're allowed to take medicines.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because it's a health and safety thing, so it comes first. So
interesting. Yeah. You mentioned earlier that there are different schools, and that it's a bit different in different areas of Japan, and you did mention Kumano.
Yes.
Many years ago, not that many, a few years ago, I did the Kumano Kodo. It was the old trail of Kumano, which is like a 4-day through hike through Wakayama.
Yeah,
it's beautiful. And so you go along shrines and you see a lot of these small kind of prayer stations in the woods. I don't know how to
Hokora, maybe.
Hokora.
Yeah.
So prayer station sounds maybe too casual, but
that sounds about right.
Yeah.
Because you stop there.
Yeah, you stop. Yeah. But I didn't really see or hear anything about Yamabushi when I hiked through there, or anyone mentioned it or so.
Yeah.
Is this an area where this is also?
Kumano is, so I don't know the details, but Kumano is a big area for Yamabushi. Kumano and Omine is huge, like Yoshino.
Yes, Yoshino. Well, that's Nara Prefecture already, but that's one end of the Kumano area as well. Yeah.
And so that's like, huge for Yamabushi. Omine as well.
What exactly would be like the big difference between Yamabushi in Yamagata and Yamabushi in Wakayama?
So for us, the big difference is that we have Shinto Yamabushi. So that's like, it's a whole separate thing. So because we have both, we have the Shinto and the Buddhist Yamabushi on the same mountains. So that's like a huge point of difference in and of itself. And then actually, I don't know if I can. There are different. So the training that we do. So the Shinto training we do is based off the Buddhist. Okay, they basically copied it. And what we do is, it's like a 10 realms of Buddhism training, and each of the realms has a different practice. So for example, so I can't remember offhand. So there's like the beast realm, there's the hell realm, hungry ghost realm. Hungry ghost realm is not eating, like fasting. And then there's like Ashura Kai, which is like titans or demigod realm. And each of these have different practices associated with them. And so when you're doing the Yamabushi training, you're practicing these 10 realms of Buddhism. I think it's actually the first 6, but because the top 4 are like kind of like out of the human existence. And so I know that so there's a ritual in Kumano which is, I think it's called Nozoki Gyo or Jikoku Nozoki. So glancing into hell. And so what they do is they tie a rope around your waist and they would suspend you from a cliff. You haven't seen this?
No, I haven't seen this. That sounds very risky.
So this represents the hell realm. We have a different ritual for the hell realm. And I'm not going to tell you what it is because I'm not allowed to. But if you come and practice, I can tell you. Yeah. And so there would be subtle differences like that. And then there's the difference between Shinto and Buddhism is huge. Like the Buddhists would have oigesa, I think they're called, like the pom-poms. Like they would wear pom-poms, like I think they actually represent the first 6 realms of Buddhism. And then different they have different they would have like I think it's like a lion skin or something like ridiculous, like a bear skin.
So like the clothing, the attire, and some of the rituals are quite
different. Yeah.
You mentioned a few times now that you're sworn to secrecy and that you're not allowed to share some of the insides of being a Yamabushi. Yeah. What exactly is the purpose of not maybe sharing the knowledge
Good question. So, when we do the Yamabushi training, so as I mentioned earlier, we're going to like the 3 different mountains, right? And they represent a different cosmic time. And since we are in the womb, the mountains are the womb, it means that we shouldn't have a recollection of our time in the mountains. We shouldn't remember what actually went on in the mountains. And so the theory is that we don't actually know what we did. Like, can you remember what it was like in the womb? Like, of course you can't. And so it's like the same kind of idea. And so, that explains why we're like sworn to secrecy, or like we can't share what goes on.
So the one of the reasons I'm asking is I'm wondering if, because there's such a secrecy and maybe it's a smaller group, the Yamabushi, compared to, let's say, regular Buddhist sect.
Yeah.
Are young people interested? Are people kind of regularly joining the Yamabushi, or is it something that is slowly kind of becoming a smaller and smaller community?
So I think it's growing. So you can be like a practicing Buddhist. So with the Buddhists, it's mainly Shingon or Tendai sects that practice Yamabushi. And so you can be like any sect and also be a Yamabushi. And so I think it's growing, but in the past, so I can't remember exactly. I was just reading it a few weeks back. There were like 100,000 Yamabushi in Japan.
Wow, that's a big number.
Yeah, this is before the Meiji Restoration. And so they would be extremely commonplace. Except these days, so I've got a friend who works at Hokkaido University who is a researcher into Shugendou, and he thinks that there are about 10,000 Yamabushi in the world. And so, yeah, I don't know, like, in terms of, like, I don't know, recruiting or, like, trying to get more people to join. So it depends, because again, with the Dewa Sanzan, like, the Jinja, Dewa Sanzan Shrine is, like, pretty keen on having more people join, but then the Buddhists are, like, more secretive. They want to keep it secret, so they only, like, let in select people.
You also mentioned that your partner kind of set up a way for non-native speakers to be able to join.
That's right.
So it's kind of opening up internationally.
Yeah, and ours, like the Yamabushi Do project, which is what you just mentioned for the English speakers, that's like, we have a strong connection to the Jinja, to the shrine. And so we have actually at least three people that I know of who have joined our programs have gone and done the trainings to become official Yamabushi. One guy actually moved to Japan from the Netherlands, and he's living in Tokyo right now studying Japanese, and he's like wanting to be a Yamabushi. And another woman she's actually like one of Japan's top influencers, like on Instagram, like more than 400,000 followers or something. And so they actually they joined our programs and then actually became official Yamabushi. And yeah, so there's that as well. Like,
so this actually is interesting. I didn't ask at all, but it's not only for men. Men and women equally can become Yamabushi.
Yeah. So again, with the Shinto and the Buddhists, they mix the genders when they do the week-long training. The Shinto, they have a week-long training for the men, and then women have a 4 or 5 day training. They're separated. Yeah, and so women are completely welcome. There is on Omine I think it's in Wakayama. Is it
Omine? I think it's in Nara.
Nara.
Yeah, at the edge of Nara Prefecture and Wakayama Prefecture.
Yeah, because I know that Omine-san, like the mountain, is Nyonin Kinsei, so only men are allowed up there, which I completely disagree with. But the Dewa Sanzan mountains are anyone can join.
Is there a minimum age that you are allowed to?
So I don't know for the Akinomine, for the Autumn's Peak. I'm not sure. The youngest people I've seen, there are people who are 20.
Okay.
And in the past, this is probably more than 100 years ago, one of the prerequisites for doing the Winter's Peak ritual was you have to have done the Autumn's Peak ritual by the age of 15. So in the past, I know it was even teenagers would do it, but these days I'm not sure.
Interesting.
For our Yamabushi trainings that we run for English speakers, if you have your parents' got permission, anyone under 18 can do it. But I don't know, you probably want to be at least 15, I guess. But yeah.
Overall, the number has kind of declined from 100,000 to 10,000 over the last 100-something years. Yeah. But now maybe it's slowly growing a little bit. Yeah. And one of the things you're doing is sharing knowledge, at least the knowledge you're allowed to share on your website, That's on your YouTube, where you're kind of trying to educate about what the Yamabushi is, what the Yamabushi does.
Yeah.
Do you think this, have you seen any positive impact from that? People that kind of reach out and, I want to...
Yeah, like the people I just mentioned.
Yeah. They found you first and kind of the
I think they probably came straight to the Yamabushi Do website. But there are a few people that come to my website first and then Yamabushi Do. It's really hard to describe, I guess. Maybe not. I work really closely with Yamabushi Do and basically share media and stuff. The stuff that I make I make it for Yamabushi Do. I don't get paid any extra or anything. But yes, there are a few people that have that came directly to me, and then or like they saw my videos and then went to Yamabushi-do. Yeah.
You said that there's 10,000 in the world according to that university researcher in Hokkaido. So are there the people that are not within Japan, they don't have any direct ties to the original shrines and temples of Yamabushi in Japan. Are there like meetups, organizations, communities? How does it work to kind of...
No, everyone's separate. And actually, that's a good point. Like everyone's like doing their own thing. Yeah, there's not like a I don't know, like a conference
overall
or something like.
Yamabushi Association.
Yeah, that's one thing that there's a few academics that I talk to, and that's one thing that they always mention. It's like there's there's a common thread of everyone practicing Shugendou, but that's about it. Like, and then different places and different practices. Yeah, that's a good point.
That's interesting. So it's hard then for Yamabushi also to maybe connect among each other beyond the people that are tied to your...
So like, it's a point of contention. Like, I know that there are other Yamabushi groups and they probably don't like the way that we do things. And so it's hard. Like,
it's hard to kind of push for Yamabushi to be more known and to work together and make it something that goes into the modern times.
Because it's like, which school of Yamabushi are you pushing? It's kind of like, I don't know, Catholicism and like Anglicism. I don't know, like.
Has the Yamabushi teachings and the way of the Shugendou changed over the years, or is it always kind of, this is the way we've been doing this forever and it doesn't change?
I'm sure it's changed, but like the training and the trainings that we do is, well, it should be the same because it's like the same kind of thing that we've been doing. I don't really know.
Interesting. Yeah. There's no official text, right? Textbook.
No, because
so it's from generation to generation, passed down from master to master.
That's right. Yeah, and like the rituals are always just like, this is how we do it, and this is how it's been done, and
Now you have Master Hoshino.
Yes.
So once Master Hoshino retires, is there going to be an assembly to decide on who's the next master, or is it a kind of natural process?
I don't know. I haven't thought about that.
Interesting.
Because he's got his son. He's got 2 sons.
So it could be like a family.
Yeah, and he runs like a shukubo, so Pilgrim's Lodge. And so the running of the Pilgrim's Lodge will fall to his eldest son. And so I don't know, it's up to his eldest son to decide, I think. Yeah.
So the future of the Yamabushi is kind of open for change, maybe, and kind of new.
Except maybe like because we have this Yamabushi-do project, like it's our own thing, so we could probably we would still want to do it in conjunction with the Pilgrim's Lodge, but I'm not exactly sure.
So this is maybe moving away a little bit, but you mentioned the Pilgrim's Lodge. So this is for people to stay at when they are kind of hiking through.
Yeah. So when we do the Yamabushi training, we don't stay on the mountains. Sometimes we do, but normally we don't stay on the mountains. We would stay in the Pilgrim's Lodge, and from there we would visit the mountains. Yeah.
Are the hikes usually like a day thing, or do you have like longer pilgrimages where you go for like a week to some far distant?
Yes, it would be a day thing generally. We're trying to. We just released like a completely new experience, which is a week long on all 3 of the mountains, and so you won't be staying. So you'll be like walking and then staying in the mountain hut. I think maybe 3 nights in the mountain huts, but like that's not Yamabushi training. It's a pilgrimage. So like there's a difference as well between a pilgrimage and Yamabushi training.
Like the Kuma no Kodo.
Yeah. And so like so for example the Dewasanzan mountains, there are 2 big cultures. So there's the Yamabushi, and then they're called Jundei, and Jundei means pilgrimage. And so but the thing is that the Jundei are led by Yamabushi, and this is just kind of like, it's not full Yamabushi training, so you're not sworn to silence, and like you can write and stuff like that. But you would do the same thing as the Yamabushi. You would visit the sacred places, and this culture of pilgrimages is what led to the establishment of the Shugendou, the Pilgrim Lodge. There's a whole village there. And in the past, there were like 300 and, I always get this number wrong, it's either 330 or 360 pilgrims lodges on Haguro-san, on Mount Haguro. And these days there are 27 remaining, and this is like the only place in Japan that has still active Shugendou pilgrims lodges providing these trainings that like they aren't like they're mainly affiliated with Dewa Sanzan Jinja. And yeah, so there are Yamabushi, people who do the Yamabushi training, and then there are the people who do the Jundei pilgrimages. And these pilgrimages have been going on for centuries, since the Edo period. And they made it so that when you come to Haguro-san, you stay, like where the pilgrim's lodge that you stay in is determined by where you're from in Japan.
Oh, interesting.
And so, or when you're usually eastern Japan, like it was from Aomori to like Kanagawa.
So on the coast of the Sea of Japan.
That's right. Sea of Japan, and then the Pacific Ocean. And so this was like eastern Japan, and then probably they would have a similar thing. They would have had a similar thing in Kansai as well, except the one in Kansai it was probably destroyed in the Meiji Restoration. But the Dewa Sanzan still exists. People still come annually, and they stay at the same places. And since they're staying at the pilgrim lodge that they're staying was determined by the location that their ancestors came from, it means that you can stay in the same place that your ancestors stayed in like more than 100 years ago.
So kind of trying to preserve this history. And
Yeah, and so, but in recent days, like the number of people that come in and stay in the pilgrim lodge, like it's dwindling, and so we're trying to, reinvigorate that, and we're doing that with providing pilgrimages for English speakers.
So in a way, you are modernizing Shugendou, or making Shugendou accessible to maybe tourists, but also foreigners who don't want to be Yamabushi,
but still want to understand. Yeah, we hesitate to use the word tourism or tourist, because people that come, like, there is a tourist aspect because you're like visiting a place from somewhere else, and so there is part of that. But people that come to us are more wanting like a spiritual, experience, or like trying to, discover about themselves or something like that. And so we try to provide that based on centuries old Japanese traditions in the mountains that have been providing this tradition for centuries as well. And
so you've been doing this for a few years.
And
kind of this spiritual practice. What would you say is the one thing that you've learned that has changed your perspective, maybe on daily life or just on...
So I failed to mention this until now, but there's a philosophy with the Dewa Sanzan Yamabushi, Haguro Yamabushi, which is uketamo. And it's translated, it means I accept. And so what happens is when you go into the mountains, like you have Yamabushi master, we call him Sendatsu, for example, Master Hoshino. And Master Hoshino would say, like, we will now climb Haguro-san. Okay, so before I said that there's no talking, which is not entirely true because we do say uketamo. Okay, and so Master would be like, we will now climb Haguro-san, uketamo, and you climb Haguro-san. We will now do waterfall meditation, uketamo, you go under the waterfall. And so there's this like, uketamo is like, kind of like following orders in a way, except it's much deeper than that. To really understand it, you have to come and do the training, but there are other aspects like, for example, something that doesn't go your way, like, bad traffic or something like that. But if you're able to accept it, like, it makes things much easier. Like if you, instead of trying to fight against the traffic, like like if you try and fight against traffic, it will get you nowhere and it'll just leave you frustrated. But if you can uketa more, you can think, maybe this is a chance to, I don't know, have a little meditation or something like that. And so uketa more is like it's a philosophy of acceptance, but it's like I don't know. For me, it's a way of just dealing with stuff that happens in your life. Like, for example, my dad passing away. Like, if you can accept it, it makes it much easier to move on. And the sooner you accept it as well, like the sooner you can move on. And so
in daily life in Japan, when some things sometimes don't go one's way, people say shoganai or shikatanai.
Yeah,
and uketamo would be more deliberately accepting, where shikatanai is like, there's nothing I can do about it. Yeah. Too bad.
Yeah. I think there is an element of
more like I'm consciously being like, okay, this happened, it's fine, and I'm just like more conscious in the process. And so this uketamo, this kind of practice of accepting to go up a mountain or to go under a waterfall or to accept traffic is the philosophy that for you kind of changed a little bit your perspective and helped you kind of...
Yeah. No, I completely changed my perspective. Like, I don't know. And then if you can also uketamo like your feelings as well. Like...
So if you're angry, uketamo. If you're sad, uketamo. If you're happy, well, uketamo as well.
Like, I don't know, if you're angry because I've always felt that anger is a waste of time. And so like whenever I find myself angry, I'm just like, take a moment to like step back and calm down. And then if you can, I don't know, uketamo, it means that you can do that quicker as well. But it's very hard to describe uketamo without actually
you need to experience
it. Yeah.
If anyone who's been listening to this or watching the video on YouTube is now interested in Yamabushi, what kind of advice would you give them if they want to learn more or if they really want to kind of make the first step to go for training?
So probably the first thing would be, the best thing you can do is to come and join the training without actually like knowing too much about it as well. Like we don't, when people ask like people who have signed up for our programs, when they ask how they can prepare, we tell them to work on your flexibility and maybe practice the Heart Sutra. But we don't tell them anything else. That's on purpose. Like we want them to come in with like the less expectations you have when you come into it, the better. If you come in with a whole lot of expectations,
if you go there expecting that suddenly you're gonna be enlightened or something like that, people might be like, this is
it's not how it works. Like, and so the first thing I would say is to come in and actually join the training, which you can do at yamabushido.jp. That would be the best thing. Other than that, it's probably actually the only answer. I think.
Yeah. So, and if they want to just find information, your website will probably be...
Yeah. So my website, I put a lot of stuff on that, timbunting.com. And then I've been trying to make more YouTube content as well, as Kiwi Yamabushi, or like Instagram, Twitter and stuff. Yeah.
On your website, I noticed you post a short article daily, nearly daily.
Yes.
Daily?
Daily. Yeah, I've been doing that for more than 5 years now. Yeah.
Can you tell us more about that?
So I call it the Daily Yamabushi. It's just a thought that I have on that day. And I write it down and put it on the blog.
It's like bits of wisdom a little bit.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know, it's more of a practice to, like if you have a daily habit like that, like journaling is the same kind of thing. It helps keep you, keeps you on your toes, like, and then keeps you, like, even if some days I find like I'm quite lazy and procrastinate all day, but I find that since I've written a blog post, it's like, it's not too bad. Like, and so that can help you, it can help build momentum to help bring you through onto the next day or, so I write a blog daily. And then I also write a newsletter as well. So that's on Substack, where I write about like Japan, like stuff that I've found, which is, I think I have a pretty unique perspective on Japan because I live in Yamagata, which
not many people,
not many people know about it. Or and then I'm also a Yamabushi, so yeah.
Is this now a big part of your identity, kind of being a Yamabushi?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
We talked a lot about the history and the background of Yamabushi. We talked about the practice and what you do today. What's next for you, maybe on your journey as a Yamabushi? Are there things you want to do, things you want to see? We mentioned the lack of overall Yamabushi organization. Is this something to create?
I'm not too fussed about that, if I'm being honest, about creating like a united Yamabushi. And the reason for that is because I think people, just because I exist, they, like other Yamabushi, probably don't want to join, but because they have their own ways of doing things. But for Yamabushi, like we always try to focus on the now. And so my main focus for now is to focus on the now. What that means is, I don't know, I really would like to create a lot more like Yamagata or Japan content. So right now I'm trying to climb the 100 famous mountains of Yamagata prefecture. I've done 31. I want to continue doing that, put it on YouTube and my blog. And then in terms of Yamabushi stuff though, like just, I guess one person at a time, like provide Yamabushi training, and because I've seen it change lives. Like, for example, the people that came and actually became official Yamabushi. We also had another guy who he did the Yamabushi training, and then he came all the way from Spain, did the Yamabushi training, and then before he went back to Spain, he got uketamo tattooed. Like
in kanji,
in hiragana. Yeah, and so like I've seen Yamabushi training change lives, and so that's what I want to do more if I can. Yeah,
it's the tattoo is perhaps a cliche, but at the same time, if for that person the lesson learned from the training,
it's like
now in his flesh, literally.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. So the focus in a way for you is now do more of what you're doing now. Moving into
basically. Yeah.
Is there anything that we haven't really touched upon that you think maybe we should mention, that we should bring that up? A concept from Yamabushi, a philosophy, or something that you would like to share about Yamagata that we didn't get the chance to talk about?
I don't know, like Yamagata is beautiful. Not enough people like come and see it. Like I think Ginzan Onsen, like when you picture like a
I've been wanting to go there, but Yamagata seems so far from here, right?
Yeah,
and yourself coming all the way. It was quite a journey for you to come to Osaka, and we're grateful that you embarked on it. But
but I made a mistake. So I didn't realize that there's a direct flight from Osaka to Yamagata.
To the town where you are?
So not to the town where I am. From there, it's like from Yamagata airport, it's another 90-minute drive. But Yamagata puts you in the center of like Yamagata prefecture. So from there, Ginzan Onsen is probably maybe 45-minute drive. And then like, you're just surrounded by gorgeous mountains and then food. And
so Yamagata, maybe if it gets more accessible with maybe a Shinkansen line.
So there's the Yamagata Shinkansen, but it's like from Tokyo. So yeah.
So you want more people to go there, basically?
Oh, I'd love.
That's the message.
I kind of want more people to get off the Golden Route, or like to explore more of the parts outside the Golden Route. Like, I try to write my blog for the people who like are kind of interested in Japan, but they don't want just the surface level stuff. They actually want like a bit of the deep stuff, and that's what I try to provide. And so I don't know. I guess be adventurous. Like if you have a desire to
act on it before your judgment is clouded.
Yeah, because humans are like, we were born instinctual creatures, but our brains sometimes just block what our body is trying to tell us. And so when you go out into the mountains, like that's what we're trying to do. That's what I mean by sensing, is trying to like find what your body is trying to tell you, and then that's what you should reflect on, rather than like having an urge and then your brain is like, no, you shouldn't do that. Like actually just do it. Like
do it and see what happens.
Yeah. So yeah,
I think those are great final words to conclude our conversation.
Yeah.
It was very, very interesting. Thank you again, Tim, for coming.
Yeah, you're welcome.
For like showing insights into what it is to be a Yamabushi, to become a Yamabushi, what one can learn from it. And hopefully people will be interested and maybe reach out to you, ask more questions, and check out your blog website, which we'll link in the description.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you everyone for watching. Thank you for listening. This was Unpacking in Japan, and we will see you again next week. Bye.
Thank you.